Hello everybody, Coach Roger here. In this video, we'll be going over parallel and perpendicular lines and how to identify them and see whether two slopes are parallel or perpendicular to each other. Okay, so then in this video, we'll be going over the ideas of parallel lines and perpendicular. So all it really is parallel lines that will never intersect, and that means that their slopes have to be equal. Okay, so this is the parallel symbol for it. Okay, so AB is parallel to CD. And then the perpendicular one is where lines, when they intersect, they create 90 degrees, meaning that they'll create a sort of line where it makes like a letter T with it. And so that upside down T will be considered perpendicular. But in order to find that, two lines that are perpendicular has to have negative reciprocals. So that means the slopes have to be flipped. So they kind of have to be flipped, and then you got to switch the sign. Okay, and then I'll show you here what I mean. So negative reciprocals, when you flip them, so we have a number on top and a number on the bottom. Once they get flipped, the B goes on top, the A goes on the bottom, and then all you really do is just switch the sign, which becomes a negative number here. When you go through it, 3 over 4, that becomes 4 over 3, and that's a negative. And then for the 2, there is an imaginary 1. Okay, and then this is your final answer right here. For the 2, number 2, there's an imaginary 1 underneath that number 2. So you flip it, and then you just change the sign, and then that is your negative reciprocal to make a perpendicular lines with the slopes that were given, okay? So same thing here. This will be 8 over 7, but it'll be positive, so it'll be stayed as like that. You have 1 over 1, so when you flip it, the number still stays in the same, are going to flip, but it's ideally the same. So here you have negative 1 over 1, and that's going to become a negative 1 in this case, okay? So be very careful, okay? So here you have 0, 0 over 1, 1 over 0, and then that will be considered undefined, okay? Because it's impossible to divide by 0 because we had the imaginary 1 underneath it, like 0 pizza slices left over out of a total pizza. Once you flip it, you get 1 over 0, and that's considered to be undefined in this case, okay? So just be very careful. This is a very special case. All right, now going back to number 4, if you have one that has like a 5 with it, so you have to remember, it's over 1, and then when you flip it, it becomes 1 over 5, and it's negative 1 over 5. So that's kind of like the answer for this one. So be very careful on these in terms of this one right here. Okay, so I'm going to work out one problem, and then I'm going to turn you loose. You just have to make sure that you know what's going on, and then know how to properly label these, okay? All right, so plot the following points and determine if the line are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to label the first point that I see. So I have x1, y1, I got x2, y2. Okay. Now remember, we have line AB. So I'm going to find that one first. So negative 2, and don't forget that they go sideways first, and then they go up and down. So you have negative 2, and then positive 3, and then you have A, and then you have 2, and then you have positive 6, and that'll be your B. So connect that one. And then you have x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, because remember, I'm trying to make a slope here. So negative 1, 0, and then 3 and 3. So run 3 and then jump 3. So run sideways first, and then jump up in the air. Run sideways first, and then jump up in the air. Okay. So then when you connect those, you have those and those. Okay, so they might look a little bit parallel, but let's go ahead and just double check with our formula, okay? So I'm going to do y2 minus y1, just to reference the formula, just so we don't forget. Okay, so I'm going to put 6 minus 3 over 2 minus a negative 2. Okay, so this minus that, and then 2 minus the negative 2. Now remember, this negative 2 is actually this part right here. And just so you know, this blue here is that negative right there. So don't get those two confused. It's very easy to get this confused, okay? So those are add up. and that'll become a 3 over a 4. And so that's going to be the first slope that we have, so 3 over 4. Okay? Now the next one, I'm doing red, so I'm going to do 3 minus 0. 3 minus 0 over 3 minus a negative 1. So I'm going to have another 3 minus a negative 1. Now remember, just giving you a heads up, see this little negative right here? Whoa. See this negative right here? That one represents this. And this blue represents the blue that we talked about over here. So just be very careful in how you're solving these. So that means you got 3 over, add them up. 3 plus 1 gives you 4. And then there you go. So you got 3 over 4 right here. So our conclusion is that the slopes are the same. So that means they are parallel. Okay? So there you go. That's our conclusion. Our conclusion is either going to be either parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So that means in this case it's parallel. Okay? Alrighty. Okay, so let's go to another one. Okay, so let's show one of these that doesn't have a graph with it, right? So that means you just have to understand that when you're looking for HI, we're comparing these two. Okay, so always label x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so when you plug them in, you got 4 minus 3 over negative 1 minus 2. And then you get 1 over a negative 3. And then that's your answer for that one. So negative 1/3. So negative 1/3. Now, just give me a heads up. So you can get one where it says like a negative on top like this. Or you get it where you have a negative on the bottom like that. But ideally, it's the same thing. They're all the same value. So because there's a negative and there's a positive involved. So don't try to overthink it. Just know that they're both, it happens to be negative. All right, so the next one. x1, y1, x2, y2, which makes it 6. 6 minus 3 over negative 4 minus a negative 5. So now I'm going to go back and just clarify this again. So this negative 4 is right here, right? And that means this negative 5 right here is this part right here. And this negative is actually coming from the formula. So do not forget that, because a lot of students forget that, and I don't want y'all forgetting that. So that means that when we look at the x's, that's my x, and that's my x, similar to this case over here. And then the negative is what we're looking at, okay? Oh, that's what we're kind of looking at from there. So that means you got 3, and then that turns to a positive. So negative 4 plus 5 gives you 1. And you got 3 over 1 in this case. So 3 over 1. So what does that mean? Are they negative reciprocals? Yes, because they happen to flip and they switched. Perpendicular. There you go. And that's it. So this one's perpendicular and the other one happens to be parallel. Okay. So there you go. There's your examples. Just make sure you go ahead and just watch the video if you get a little bit lost. But then you also check out the other ones to help you out too. Okay? Alrighty, y'all. Oh, you know what? Let me just talk about this one too. So neither, right? So when do you run into this situation? When you have a number that doesn't match. Like it doesn't match up at all. So you have something like this. This will be considered neither. Okay? Or maybe we have like 5 over like 7. And then you get like a number that says 7 over 5. And then you're thinking like maybe it's a perpendicular. Maybe it's perp. But then the issue is what is missing. One of them has to have a negative. So this one would also be considered neither. Okay? So just be very careful on how you solve these. Okay? And just very, very detailed about what numbers you're looking at. Okay? And that will be considered neither in that case. Alrighty. Okay, hey y'all. Go ahead and check out the next video. Later.